Well, hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of the Therapy Show. This week, I am interviewing Milena Riservato. Welcome to the show. It's so awesome to have you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. So, this is the second in a series of how you built this or how you're building your private practice. And I can't wait to hear more about your story. I know a little bit, but can you share with our listeners who you are, where you live, what your license is, and maybe how long you've been licensed or, as a therapist?
Yeah. I'm kind of still in the infant phases. I think I shared that with you. And I'm just grateful to be able to share this with you guys so early on because I feel like I can learn so much from the feedback and then also just being kind of putting myself out there and out of my comfort zone because I've never done this before. So this is really, really exciting for me. But my name is Milena Riservato. Thank you for that introduction, Lisa. I'm from New York. I'm licensed in New York as a licensed mental health counselor. And I essentially started my private practice way less than a year ago. I think November of last year was when I decided that I was going to go on my own. And I did things a little differently. I did things a little backwards. So my actual license is an LMHC. I am in my early 40s, so I dedicated a lot of my early years to raising my kids. I have an 8-year-old boy and a 3.5-year-old girl. So it took me a quite long time to get my license, and I actually didn't become licensed until since February of last year.
Okay.
I actually took my licensing exam, and then I finally got my license in July. And then literally it was full steam ahead because this has been in the works for almost, 10, 15 years since I got my master's degree in 2008. So yeah, I was getting limited permits, and then I got pregnant, and then I took some years off, and then I went back, and I always knew I wanted to have my own practice because of the scheduling and the flexibility. But I couldn't yet because I had to be under supervision because I had all of these clinical hours that I needed. But I always joke around that my clinical hours way exceeded the necessary amount because of the amount of years that it actually took for me to get licensed. But I had amazing clinical experience, so I don't regret the way it happened because it happened exactly as it was supposed to be. So I'm grateful here to share that with you guys.
Wow. Okay. All right, I finished my program in 2006. So you finished in 2008. And I'm trying to like all the stuff that I've done and been through since then. And then, oh gosh, so you got your degree. You took some time to get your clinical experience. Where did you do your internship or where did you get your clinical experience?
Yeah, so I did it at a few different places. So originally I worked at an outpatient substance abuse treatment facility in New York City.
Mm.
And my whole thing was like, whoa, it was definitely a culture shock, even though that I do live in New York City. It was just a very difficult population to work with. But I was like, if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere, no pun intended. I think that's kind of like
Yeah.
the how we know New York as well, right? It's like if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. So
Mhm.
that was definitely a little hard introduction into the field for me. But then after that, I got married and then I got pregnant and I worked with the Hasidic Jewish population. It was an
Oh.
absolutely amazing experience. And then after I had my son, then I took about 4 to 5 years off.
Mhm.
And then after that, I went back and worked for a private practice, did some hours there, had a lot of independence, which was really awesome. I created a program there. And then where I was the past 5 years, a local private practice group that really, really took flight during the pandemic. And it's a really good friend of mine. I don't know if I could say his name.
Sure. If he's comfortable with you saying it, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So Sean Tendler from North Star Counseling, really great friend, really great colleague. He had a couple of clinicians and I started with him kind
Mhm.
of on the ground floor and he grew. Now he has over 40 clinicians and he's really doing very well, has a great thriving private practice group. But I was, I knew that my time had ended there. And because I was ready to do it on my own and kind of figure it out as to what my individual, my thumbprint was and how I can make my own impact on my own and then grow eventually my own private practice group, which is definitely an intention and a goal of mine for the future.
Okay. Well, that's great. I love hearing the background stories, and I'm really curious about what it was like to work with the Hasidic Jewish population. I should probably learn more from you on that on maybe another episode, because I think that's a culture in a world that a lot of people maybe don't know about, and the things that kind of are involved in their lifestyle and their culture and their worldview. A lot of therapists wouldn't maybe know how to work with them. So maybe that's another topic for another day.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely very multi-layered and complex in a lot of ways, but it was such a beautiful experience for me. It definitely stretched me a lot as a human being, just like the outpatient substance abuse treatment facility did as well. And I really do think that those experiences prepared me for what was to come when I decided to go on my own and kind of like navigating this year.
Yeah. That's one of the things I love about this field is it stretches us. If we're open to it, we are open to being stretched.
Yeah.
This field can definitely give you a lot of that. So, oh, very cool. Okay, so it sounds like you were in a thriving group practice and you had the itch, you were ready to move out on your own. So, can you share a little bit like your first steps that you took? Because a lot of our listeners might be in the same position as you. They have the same goals, they want to be on their own. They got into this field because they wanted to make their own hours, they wanted to run a business. So, what did you do in the beginning? And okay, so when you said last November, do you mean November of 2022?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, all right, y'all. It's very fresh in your memory. So tell us like what you did when. Oh, first of all, how was that? I don't know why the word breakup comes to mind, but how did it go when you told Sean? His name was Sean, right? That
Yes.
you wanted to go out on your own. What was that conversation like?
Oh gosh, what a great question, Lisa. Yeah, all of it is fresh in my mind. However, all of it is very blurry because I'm still it's just kind of fish out of water in so many ways. But I say because I got my license so late, it was such a long time coming. So in essence, it was kind of like a marathon that I was already training for, and for so many years. So once I got that license number, I was like, I'm out. And he knew about that. It was something that we had discussed, and because of such a beautiful relationship that we had, a very ethical, beautiful colleague relationship that we still have and had established, he said that he would be more than happy to help me go on my own. And he really did help me a lot. So I had his backing. If I had a legal question, he would say, don't worry, I already have a consultation with my attorney. I'll ask that for you. So there was a lot of, I guess, because there was a lot of gratitude there because we both started kind of together, and he really helped me along. So it was more so like this kind of natural progression and an organic parting rather than I guess a break. I guess it kind of is because I didn't want to leave because having colleagues, because as you know, being an entrepreneur and also being in private practice can be kind of isolating in so many ways. And I loved being on Slack and having other colleagues, and we would have group chats, and we would have colleague get-togethers. So that I knew I was going to miss that, but I also knew that I could recreate that in a different way. So that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think a lot of therapists kind of worry about, and that might be some work they need to do on their own. But, if you're leaving a group practice and you have any feelings about it, or I think a lot of people need to hear that it really depends on the relationship that you have. And, I would assume and hope that most group practice owners out there, at least the ones that I know, are like all about supporting their clinicians. So if you feel like it's time for you to go, gosh, I mean, how can I support you? How can I help you get to where you want to be? And it sounds like you had to have a great relationship with him. Okay.
Yeah.
So you tell
And
him
can I just
that. Oh
mention
yeah,
something about that
totally.
really
Mhm.
quickly? And also that goes to show how important it is to build a really good ethical relationship and rapport,
Mhm.
because we had that conversation. I said, I would never do you dirty. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I wouldn't go out there and like try to steal your clients or try to take whatever business model that you have. I would, there's such a big level of integrity that is important here when you are going out, because I don't want to leave with that kind of, burning that bridge or a reputation. He would never help me. Right. So it's like, why? why create that kind of an atmosphere? Because I believe that's the fear for a lot of people, is
Right.
like, what's going to happen after the fact? Kind of information is this person going to take? What kind of competition are they going to be for me? So that was not an issue. This was
Right.
just a very like, there's plenty of, resources for everybody, and everyone can have a piece of the pie. So we had that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good to hear. Okay, so you decide that you're going to go into private practice. So, like, what were the first things that you did to get yourself kind of on your, like, I'm like moving my hands, like on your way to opening your doors in November of last year?
Okay. Whew, gosh, this is such a great question. I'm trying to like remember all of it. It really does feel like a blur because I was so excited. It was like this, just a lot of like ignorance and being naive and just kind of like just jumping into it. But I really just, I was like, how are people going to know about me? So the good thing was that I had some great clients that I was able to take with me, and only because they wouldn't want to go anywhere else. And I decided to, and then the decision to take insurance or not. So that kind of gave me a good kind of solid foundation to have the confidence to build. And then I got on some platforms. I got on Psychology Today. I just recently joined ZenCare. I mean, I don't get any money to like
Sure.
plug
No,
them
that's
in, but
no. Yeah, tell us what you're doing because they want to know. Like everybody wants to know. It's fine.
yeah,
You can say.
yeah. So ZenCare, they come and they do a video of you, and then you can have like, you're basically like a video introduction of yourself, and then they do professional headshots. And it's a lot of like holistic and mindfulness practitioners, because I do mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy. And so it kind of targets your ideal client. And that's really was my first intention or goal going into private practice was, in my our earlier years, I just took whatever I could, because I was like, okay, I'm helping people. That's what I went into this field for. And then as I got older and as I kind of matured into who I am, I realized that I really want to work with a certain type of community, or I want to work with a certain type of person. And that was totally okay. So that was the first thing that I did, was trying to figure out like, what's my niche? Who am I going to work with? And then what do I want maybe my brand to look like, which I'm still in the process of exploring. I don't have a website yet, but I'm really just, again, in the crawling infant phases of all of this stuff. But exploring all of that was the first step, I think, for me. And then figuring out the logistics after that. I really needed kind of like a little bit of a system and a plan.
Sure. It makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay. So
Mhm.
sounds like, just to recap, it sounds like you got on Psychology Today, you got on ZenCare, and did you decide to take insurance?
Yes.
Okay.
So I found a company called Alma. There's also a different company, I think it's called Headway. So I chose to go with Alma. And, one of the things that, gosh, I struggled with so much was, I really didn't want to deal with insurance companies at all. And rightfully so. They do give us a lot of issues. And I feel like mental health counselors are like on the bottom of the food chain when it comes to practitioners, which is really really sad, right? To think of it in some ways. But I did want to go into self-pay, and I wanted to market myself as, and charge a whole bunch of money, but I'm like, I'm not going to be giving mental health access to a lot of people if I do that. And then also having insurance was my own kind of reassurance or insurance
Mhm.
policy or plan or whatever. Knowing that I would have a sustained amount of people coming into my practice in the beginning if I couldn't get a lot of self-pay clients. And I was actually surprised that I did attract a lot of clients that I wanted to serve based on the way that I presented myself on my profile and who I chose to work with. So I had this kind of like, I guess, expectation or bias or whatever it was that completely got debunked, which was great. So I did end up taking insurance, but I have a nice balance right now between self-pay and insurance clients. And I really enjoy giving people the access because they work hard, they have insurance, they pay for it, and they really should be able to use it.
Yeah, that's lovely. I like how you talked about your mindset shifting towards insurance. And when I don't have a private practice, you guys know that. And when I and that it always kind of creeps into my mind, should I start a private practice? Do I want to do that? Because like you, I have like I want to help people. I want to grow something. I want to, just I get calls for people and they're asking me if I'm taking people. And But I work a full-time job, which I absolutely love. So I'm torn and I only have but so many hours in the day that I can, help people. And so I decided to start the podcast. That was my way of like, okay, if I want to make an impact, I'm going to do this show and help other therapists, just with all kinds of things. So I think it's really neat how you had this mindset of I want to be self-pay. But at the same time, I love it how you said these people work hard, they have insurance. They should be able to use their benefits. So kudos for you to kind of, reframing that for yourself. I think that's just beautiful for your patients or your clients.
Thank you, Lisa. I
Yeah,
appreciate that. And you are absolutely making an impact. I mean, this experience alone is just so rewarding and exciting to reach such a big audience and really give them that information and tools that they need. So it has a similar and it evokes or embodies the similar emotions and feelings, but it's just in a different setting. So
right.
you're rocking it.
Oh, well, thanks. Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about your practice. Did you have any obstacles or challenges that you kind of, really maybe kept you up at night? Maybe that's the way to phrase it as you were getting started.
Yeah, my 3-year-old.
Right. Kids, they keep us up. Yeah.
Literally keeping me up at night
Yeah.
still. Yeah, I would say that probably was the toughest obstacle for me from the beginning, was because I worked an X amount of hours and it wasn't that much. And now I'm working a lot more hours. And as building anything, a podcast, a business, it's your baby in a lot of ways too. So there's a lot of nurturing, a lot of time, a lot of energy that goes into it. And then I'm also doing clinical work on top of that.
Right.
So that probably was the biggest, and it still is because I'm still figuring it out. My role hasn't really changed that much in terms of how I mother, or, I'm always there to pick them up from the bus, or I go pick up my daughter at her school. So that hasn't changed. I really wanted to work very hard to keep that the same, but I literally finish at 2:30 because my last client's at 1:30. I don't take on night clients because I really want to be accessible and available to my kids when they get home. But that has been a really big challenge and an obstacle, is kind of navigating what my role is now as a mom and as a business owner, and with having all of these responsibilities
Right.
that I never had before, really.
Right.
So that was my biggest obstacle. Another obstacle was just understanding the systems, and how to really implement a system where I'm not all over the place and I have my information in one place, and banking and business banking and gosh, attorneys and accountants, and really, because there's self-pay and it's cash, and figuring out tax, like all that kind of stuff, now that tax season's coming up. So there are a lot of obstacles and hurdles. Those are all the logistical ones. And I think that for me, the biggest obstacle right now is like, this is my time now. Mommy's going to be 42 this year, and she's been waiting about 14 years to work in this capacity. So now I really want to dedicate that time to it, but it's kind of like that, like mommy
Yeah.
guilt, yeah. So, but it's
Yeah.
something that will unfold as it happens.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can relate on a lot of levels. My kids are older than yours. I say almost 12 and almost 15 because their birthdays are coming up. And but yeah, that's always been kind of, on the back burner for me. It was the schedule that I wanted to have was I want to be able to pick them up and get to stuff when I want to. And I'm grateful that I have a very flexible position. Sometimes I can't, because things come up, um but that's a whole other there's a reason my job is like very much 24/7 because I work for a military department, but at the
Mhm.
same time there's the flexibility of since I'm kind of always like on call in a sense, there's boundaries that are set that allow me to, hey, I'm going to go pick up my kid and I'll be back, but I got to do this first.
Yeah.
So and I think that's lovely, and that's one of the great things about this field is as a mom, you can create that. We have to be very intentional with how we do it, but I mean, gosh, you're doing it. And that's the exciting part. It's happening. You're making
Yeah.
it happen. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I
I'm
know
doing
it's
it.
tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's some nights where it's like, 5 o'clock and, maybe there's something happening in the therapy world that you want to be a part of, or a meeting or networking. And you're like, oh, it can be tough to definitely stick to those boundaries because as you're growing your business, you want to take part in anything that you can to further it. So And I understand that. So I would like to know, what do you feel has made the most impact for you? I think I know the answer to this, but what do you think has made the most impact for you in growing your business and kind of being at the place you are right now? Well, maybe I should back it up and say, are you where you want to be at this point in your business?
Mm, okay. Ah, gosh. I know that I'm exactly where I need to be.
Okay.
An old colleague of mine and some friends of mine, we talk about it, and we say this phrase, it's like, I am right on time.
Mm-hmm.
And what I and for me, what I mean by that is I'm exactly where I need to be. And just having that mindset and believing that I am exactly where I need to be, kind of takes the pressure off of chasing the next thing, I guess, if you will.
Mm.
And which I've really kind of fallen into that trap over the years because I wasn't where I wanted to be. But now that I'm licensed and I've established my practice and I'm establishing a relationship in the community, and I just rented office space early this year. So I'm seeing clients, I'm going to start seeing clients face to face. I haven't gotten any yet, but I have the space and it's beautiful. And, since COVID, it's the first time going back, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm not where I really want to be,
Mm-hmm.
but I know I am where I need to be.
Right. Makes sense.
So
Okay.
yeah, if that makes any sense.
So, what do you feel like is making the most impact for you in terms of growing your business, like marketing yourself? Like, what do you feel like is helping you the most? Get clients.
Yeah, that I mean, I love organic marketing. For
Mm.
me, I feel that like cold calling or calling places, it really doesn't work. That kind of like pitchiness, because people are not going to call you back. They're just not. But if we're establishing relationships, if let's say I'm getting my hair done and somebody asks me, and they're like, "Oh, can I get your information?" And so, I don't walk around saying, "Hey, I'm an LMHC." I don't do that. But if somebody asks me and that, conversation comes up, being part of networking groups, I've been in this community for a pretty long time. So the schools, even my kids, their pediatrician office too. So I'm really close with the pediatrician, so she has my information, nurse practitioner, psychiatrist in the area, my own OBGYN I've contacted, and we have a great relationship together, and she's put me on the list of referrals. So just doing it like, contacting people that I know,
Yeah.
contacting people that I know would be, I guess, a low hanging fruit for
Hmm.
now, until I get my brand really clear on my brand, until I get to that point where I have the website and I could really market myself on a different scale, I guess. And really, I don't do social media yet. So, I still have so many things that I need to learn. So I'm comfortable now with that. And then also through Alma, there's a lot of lead generation there. They have a beautiful matching service. So based on whatever the client's needs are, and then my profile and some keywords, they match. And then I tend to get a decent amount of consultations monthly
Nice.
from them.
Very nice. So that's great. Okay. So I know you mentioned you don't have a website yet and you're not doing social media. So I think it sounds like you're growing yourself organically very nicely. So those things are nice to have, but they're not necessarily need to have, I think,
Mm.
as you get started. I mean, if it were me, that's what I would be doing. I would be, who do I know already that would be referring to mental health providers and just all the places, all
Yeah.
the places. So I think that's wise. In fact, my hairstylist, she jokes around and she's like, "Give me your cards." I'm like, "I'm not taking on new people." She's like, "I know, but," like, it's funny. I
Yeah.
I joke with her and say she's almost like a therapist.
Oh yeah.
Because people, when we're getting our hair done, we're talking and we're connecting.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I chew my hairstyle's ear off all the time.
yeah. No, it's kind of funny how that works. Okay, so looking back, at anything that you've done so far, is there anything that you wish that you had done differently moving forward, or any kind of like, hindsight's 2020 that you could let our listeners know about?
Mm. I gotta like take a breath and really think about that question. Something I could have done differently. Um, Nothing comes to my mind, to be honest with you. I feel like if I had done it differently, then I wouldn't have stumbled the way that I did, and I
Sure.
wouldn't have figured it out.
Okay, makes
So I
sense.
really needed to do it the way that I did it, because I stumbled a lot. And I'm
Right.
still stumbling. And like I said, I'm still crawling through this experience. It really, everything is just so fresh and new. But I guess what I could have done differently, kind of, because like you said, hindsight is 2020, is have a more kind of clear or transparent conversation with my husband or my kids or my family about this new position or this new role that I'm taking on, so that there's like a managing of expectations. And, this is kind of a vulnerable thing to share, but I think it's important for the listeners to hear that, because a lot of times we're so like laser focused on like just like building the business, all the logistics. And if you do have a family and you do have a kids per se, there's so many other complexities that come into play with that. So that really was what I would have done different, because now I'm having the conversation as it's unfolding. And also, how would I have known what I guess the response would have been, or the reaction would have been? We're all trying to figure it out together as it's happening,
Right. Right.
and that's just a part of life. Like I can't know what's going to happen before it happens, because life
Right.
happens now.
So true. So true. Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I was gone this weekend for with my daughter for a volleyball tournament, and a lot of things happened from Friday to Sunday in my world of podcasting and continuing education, creating that. And I got some emails and I got some, feedback and requests. And he's like, "Well, how was the tournament?" And I gave him all the details about our daughter and how she played. And then I said, "But let me tell you about these emails I got." And he, because I don't, who else do I share it with? Like, because podcasting, I mean, I have the network and we all connect, but it's different in my own home. I want my husband to know, like, he doesn't get it because he's not a therapist. In fact,
Right.
he does like, contracting work. So it's not anything he gets, but he sees my excitement and I'm like, I know you don't understand what I'm talking about, but can you just like listen for a minute? Because I don't have anybody else to tell this right now. And so I encourage everybody to have those conversations
Yeah.
as you're experiencing things. Of course, client confidentiality and all that stuff that goes into it, but you got to share it with somebody. And that is how this work is isolating, I suppose, as well. So I think that's really important. I'm glad that you brought that up. So thank you.
Yeah.
I have a couple more questions. So have you experienced any burnout or compassion fatigue yet?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. I wouldn't say so. And I'll tell you why. That's a really good question. So something that I was really intentional about going into my private practice with my cup full-ish, if that makes any sense. So if I feel like there's too many people coming on, I'll stop my availability, online. So it shows that I'm not taking on any more new clients. So I'll stagger that. So I'll go like maybe 3 weeks without having any consultations. And then once I'm ready, then I'll take another client on. So I think using like a preventative model, which I also help a lot with my clients too, is kind of like that chain link reaction, or use a preventative model so that I don't create that fatigue. And that, because also I have to remember, I also have a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old that I take care of, which in itself creates compassion fatigue and emotional, resources that are taken from you on a daily basis as a mom. So just being a mom is already such a high burnout thing, that I really try to mitigate that as much as I can in my work. So I do have days where I have a lot of clients and I'm just completely tapped out, but then I will make sure not to schedule anybody the next day, or I'll have one day where I'm really focusing on my self-care. I'll go to my meditation center. I do things that I know is going to fill myself up, that has nothing to do with caring for anybody or listening to anybody.
Gotcha. And how many clients would you say is full for you right now, being, based on how you have your business set up and your life set up?
Yeah. So because I can't, I mean, I can, I don't
Mhm.
want to, I choose
Right. You
not
choose not to.
to, because I choose not to see clients at night. I see clients from 8:30 to 1:30 is my last appointment. And that's plenty of sessions in one day with a little bit of a break in between. I see anywhere between probably 12, maybe to 16 clients a week.
Mhm.
And overall, I have about 25. So every other week, or a maintenance session once a month.
Okay, well, that's really helpful to know because I know, like you said, there are listeners out there who are in different situations, and some are single, they only provide for their family, and, maybe they have to work more hours, and that can be a cause of burnout and overwhelm. And it is it is tough, I think. But it's doable. And I love how you've set up your practice to work for you and for your family and for your situation. So I think that's just fabulous. Now, do you have future plans to grow? If you've grown 300, 400%, I imagine you're like, should I bring on another clinician and turn into a group practice? Is that something that you're thinking about? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you went into this because you want to make an impact, like
Mhm.
that's, I think the key word here is making an impact, and how I can make that impact on a greater scale.
Mhm.
And, creating courses is definitely a goal of mine. Definitely having a group private practice, because, eventually I can't be, I mean, I love this work. So it's not something that I'm like, I can't wait to like do my 40 years and then retire. That's not how it works for me, because I think I could do this for as long as I'm living and breathing. So I don't have a cap on that. But in terms of, I would like to utilize my time maybe differently, maybe create a course, maybe do a lot of group stuff, maybe have some thriving, private practice groups. Absolutely. I'm definitely thinking very big.
Mhm.
But I am also trying to keep my feet planted and grounded, and just stay where I am and follow my intuition and whatever it is that is guiding me right now. Just go, and
Right.
not really limit myself. So
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. I'm excited for you. So another question that I had for you, I know you mentioned you go to your meditation center for
Mhm.
self-care. Are there other things that you do for self-care?
Yeah, I love Pilates. I think it's a it's a great exercise for women of all ages, but especially for once you're in your 40s and 50s. It's just core alignment, and a lot of muscle strength. And I occasionally will get massages, but just alone time. I really, really value my alone time. Putting the kids to bed at a decent time, having some time for myself, reading something I love, spending time with family. Yeah,
Yeah.
but meditation is a really, really big part of my life.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, what does your husband say about your business? How does he feel about it?
Well, my husband is also an entrepreneur,
Okay.
so
Yeah. That's awesome.
we own a few restaurants on Long Island in New York, Italian restaurants, pizzerias, and so the restaurants are very demanding, and he does understand that a lot of the stuff is a labor of love. He's really proud of me. He's very excited about my future and my growth and what's going to happen. He's been my biggest support system, I would have to say, along with my mom and my stepdad, and everybody in my family. So yeah, he thinks I'm a, can I say that, a badass?
Yeah, say it. Shout it from the mountaintops. She's a badass. Her husband says it. That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. Well, I've just so enjoyed chatting with you. Okay, one more question. Have you taken any continuing education training recently that you absolutely loved and you want to recommend to our listeners?
Okay. Yeah, I actually took my very first one.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was it was actually part of NIMCA, which is the New York State Mental Counseling Association,
Mhm.
and they offered a training on acceptance commitment therapy and mindfulness, which is, the mindfulness world is booming right now, and I really did enjoy it. It gave me another kind of understanding of what acceptance commitment therapy looks like, and how I can actually use it. Um, and it was a Zoom thing. It wasn't something that I did on my own. So
Sure.
it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to doing more kind of things that I can go away, or like a weekend thing, or just kind of a more immersive experience, I guess, because it could be like an obligation,
Yeah.
continuing education.
Yes, it is an obligation and something that well, here in South Carolina, we have to do it, every 2 years, and we have to have a certain amount of trainings and this and that. And some can be live and some can be recorded. And they changed it. I don't know. I have to check our board again and the requirements. But after COVID, they kind of changed it back to some stuff. And well, what I think is really cool is you can do live webinars and they count for like in person. So you don't necessarily have to leave your home. But I think a lot of us are like itching to get out these
Yeah,
days and be
yeah.
with our peers. And if you're up for it, we have a great. They don't pay me to say this, but I love the Low Country Mental Health Conference in Charleston, South Carolina. I think it's in July, and it's just if you want to have a new experience and see Charleston. And, it's just fabulous. Maybe I should look to them to sponsor the show, because I'm always like telling people they need to go check it out.
Yeah.
That's the one I can plug today that's coming up okay, well, is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners before we end?
Well, I had no idea what I was going to get myself into when I when I signed on to do this podcast, but this was really a wonderful experience. And the only thing that I would say is, I know this is going to sound so cheesy, but if I didn't believe in myself, I wouldn't be here. So whatever anybody else says or doesn't say to you, if there's like this inner compass or this guiding system that's inside of you that wants bigger and wants to just burst out of the comfort zone, just do it. Even if it makes you feel super uncomfortable, which this is, because I've never done this before. I told myself that I'm not going to get anything accomplished if I stay in my bubble. I have to break through that for me to really grow as a human being and really offer what I want to give to the world. And there's no way I could do that by playing it small.
I love it. So what's the takeaway? Listen to that inner guidance, that compass that's, telling you are here to do more and to be more and have more because of doing all those things and giving back. And believe in yourself. Oh, it's just beautiful. Now, if people want to connect with you, listening, I know you don't have a website or social media, right? You don't have either one yet. Okay.
Not yet.
So
I have my domain.
Okay.
It's under construction.
Awesome. But if they want to reach out to you, what would be the best way? Email or? Okay.
Yeah. So I could be found on psychologytoday.com. It's Milena Riservato, MilenaRiservato. And I could also be found on Alma, which is helloalma.com. And then, you can email me as well. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to connect. I love connecting with clinicians, people who are interested in becoming clinicians or opening up private practice. And that's Milena Riservato. It's all one word @gmail.com.
Okay. Well, I'll put everything in the show notes too. So people can just click in there. And one more question. Do you think you might become a supervisor one day?
Yeah, I would love that experience. I've actually considered teaching in local community colleges here. So that is definitely a role that I can see myself in. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. Well, thanks so much for coming on to the show. It has just been a pleasure to have you on. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.